Let's go back, way back, before the name Tesla meant the future of cars, before it changed, well, pretty much everything.
And before SpaceX, before we saw rockets landing themselves, which was straight out of science fiction, before we were all seriously talking about becoming a multiplanetary species.
And yeah, before the billions, before all the headlines and the noise, there's a story that most people don't know. A story of just grinding, relentless struggle. A story that almost ended so many times before it even got started.
Because this isn't really a story about success. It's a story about failure. It's about what it feels like to be told no, to be cast out, to be rejected, and how you find the strength to get back up, again and again.
So our story doesn't start in some shiny Silicon Valley office. It starts in Pretoria, South Africa. And it starts with a quiet, awkward kid who just never really fit in.
And I mean, the adversity here was real. This wasn't just being nerdy. He was a total outsider, and he was bullied so badly that he once ended up in the hospital from a beating. But in all that isolation, he found a different world inside the computer.
Get this, at just 12 years old, after teaching himself how to code, he sells his first video game for $500. Now, it wasn't about the money. It was the first sign, the first proof that an idea, something from inside his head, could actually become real, that it could have power.
He could see the future he wanted, but he knew he couldn't build it in the South Africa of that time, so he made a huge choice. He packed 2 suitcases and just left. He headed for North America, with no connections, no safety net, totally on his own.
And this right here, this quote, is basically his operating system. It's not just some nice saying. It's the belief that got him through every odd job, every night wondering how he'd pay for food or tuition. It's everything. So, his first real company, a little startup called Zip2, was going to put that philosophy to the absolute test. It was going to demand literally everything he had. I mean, just try to picture this. He and his brother couldn't even afford to rent an apartment, so they lived in their tiny office. He was sleeping on the floor, showering at the local YMCA, and just coding almost around the clock. All while investors were telling him the whole idea was a dead end. And then it happened. The payoff. Compaq bought Zip2, and Elon, the kid who was sleeping on the office floor, walked away with $22 million. Now, for most people, that's the end of the movie, right? Happy ending. For him, it was just the beginning of the next wave of pain. What happens next is a moment of just absolute betrayal, a moment that honestly would have broken almost anyone. And this all goes down at the company that would later become PayPal. And let's be super clear here. He wasn't just some employee. He co-founded the company. He was the single largest shareholder. He was the one in charge. And they fired him. The very board that he put together, the people he was building this thing with, they staged a coup and voted him out of his own company. But this is the detail that just turns it into a total gut punch. They didn't even do it to his face. They waited until he was on a plane, on his first real vacation in years, to do it. He literally landed and found out he'd been kicked out. There's really only one word for that feeling. Humiliated. Cast aside from the very thing he was pouring his entire life into. So, what do you do then? He could have taken his money, bought an island, and just disappeared forever. But instead, he made what has to be one of the riskiest, most insane bets in business history. See, after PayPal eventually sold to eBay, his share was a mind-blowing $180 million. I mean, that's never have to work again money. A lifetime of security. But he didn't see security. He saw fuel. And he took every single penny, $100 million for a rocket company, $70 million for an electric car company, $10 million for a solar company. He pushed all his chips onto the table. There was no plan B. And this quote, this is why he did it. It wasn't about being sure he would win. It was about believing in a future so much that you're willing to lose everything just for the chance to build it. It's choosing hope over fear, period. So, okay, what's the lesson here? When you look back at this whole chaotic, painful journey, what do you take away from it? Well, his story isn't just a story, it's a blueprint for resilience. And the blueprint is pretty simple. First, you have to embrace the struggle. The hard stuff isn't getting in your way, it's what's shaping you. Second, learn from betrayal. Don't let it make you bitter, let it make you smarter. And third, bet on your vision. If you're lucky enough to have success, don't just protect it, use it. The whole story, All of it really just boils down to this one question. After all the failures, all the rejection, all the humiliation, what really separates the people who do incredible things from everyone else who just walks away? Sometimes the answer is as simple and as profoundly difficult as that. It's just the will to get back up off the floor and say, okay,